Good evening, everybody. That was not the that was not the smartest fade out ever. I got kind of carried away with the music a little bit and started just jamming out, and I thought, oh, I'd better start the show. So sorry about that. That was almost brilliantly rehearsed. Anyway, welcome to Songwriting Simplified here on Jonny Lipsham Studios YouTube channel with me, Jonny Lipsham. Unfortunately, Johnny Gibe is unable to be here this week because he has some really rather pressing family business to take care of. Some of you guys will already know kind of what happened with Johnny's YouTube channel, the Home Studio Trainer YouTube channel. If you don't know what happened, I'm sure Johnny will be happy to explain that to you. Suffice to say that that YouTube channel is gone, unfortunately. For those of you that didn't know, it's a bit of a saga, a bit of a drama, and so Johnny is kind of having a bit of a break as a result of all of that, and also he's with his family. His family are going through a little bit of a tough time right now. So the Gibe family need a lot of love from us, I will say that much. And so it would be great if we could all rally round and get round them and support them and give them some love and some care and some help and support. So news from the Home Studio Trainer family has not been great, and we're all pretty concerned, to say the least. But here we are in Songwriting Simplified. You know, the show must go on, and we got to keep it going, and we've got to keep things moving, and not get too upset and not get too sad, because, you know, that really isn't going to help us. We need to be positive. We need to move forward, and we need to keep going with the things that we have been going and things that have been successful, and just rebuild and make those things successful again. So that's what we're going to do, and we're going to start right now. We're going to start tonight with a clean slate with Songwriting Simplified. So I am here to answer your songwriting questions and your questions about music theory. I love your questions about music theory because you guys always ask the best ones. And to talk about arranging, composing, and any of that kind of stuff we can talk about. Plus, the fact, you know, we now have Studio 1.6, which is great because there are some nice songwriting tools there for us, such as the lyrics track, and we can take a look at that tonight. For those of you that have not seen it and would like to look at it in a little bit more detail, just say so in the chat. If you want to look at the lyrics chat in a little bit more lyrics track in a little bit more detail, then please say so in the chat and we will do that. I'm happy to talk you through a little bit more of what it can do. And, you know, to be honest, you know, it's a brand new feature, so we're just getting started. That's all I can say, really. We're just getting started for what Studio 1.6 is going to be able to do. So that's all I'm going to say, because that's all really I can say. But we've just got started. So the lyrics track is already freaking awesome, and I can only imagine it's going to get better, and it's going to get better, and it's going to get better, and it's going to get more powerful, and there are going to be more songwriting tools that relate to it as we go forward. But that's not an official line because I can't say such things. And besides which, I don't actually know. So with regard to those kind of things, but I think it will be pretty cool going forward. So we've got plenty of people here. We have 20 people here, which is pretty awesome. If you're new to the show and you're new to my channel, please hit the subscribe button and hit the like button if you like what I do. I would appreciate it greatly. And hit the notification bell so that you are always notified about shows and videos and posts that I put up on this channel. If you're interested in my content and you want to know more. So if that's what you are about, and you also want to be able to contribute in the chat tonight, you will need to be subscribed. So please hit that subscribe button, and then after a short period of time, the chat will unlock and you will be able to get in here and say hello. At the very least, we are a very warm and welcoming community here on Jonny Lipsham Studios. And the people here are fantastic. And if whilst I'm demonstrating something, you have a question, and you know, the guys here and the gals here will pitch in and they will help provide an answer. And oftentimes they have the answer before I do, which is a real testament to how good these people are. And they will take care of you and they will help you because they're awesome. All right, so let's go through and see who is here. Let's go up to the top. So I think Kyle was in here first. I may be mistaken because sometimes if you join the chat like ludicrously early, like I know my dear friend Billy does, he sometimes will join, he will log into the show like 5 or 6 hours ahead of time. Sometimes those get removed when we start the show. I don't know why. It's something I have seen just recently. So here are the people who are here in no particular order. Carl Draguzia, Papa Raptor Music, and Lollipop Guild, and John Edgar, and Don Oliver. Mark Holly is here as well. Burlap Studios is here. Rick Gran is here. And Harley Bob is here. Alps Media, my awesome sponsor, is here. Tony Stringer is here. Tony, you sent me an email and I apologize for the delay in getting back to you. It has been mental here, but I will reply to you, I promise. And I apologize. Bobby Booth is here, which means we can start the show now. And let's see who else is here. I'm scrolling the wrong way, as usual. Secret Squirrel is here, and I think that's it. I think we've got to the bottom. So let's see. Do we have questions? Remember, if you want to ask me a question, you need to type at Jonny Lipsham Studios and then ask your question. The reason why I ask folks to do that is because that makes my name show up in red in the chat. It doesn't show that way for you, but for me it does. And then that means I can see questions really easily and I can separate them from just the regular talking amongst yourselves that you guys do in chat, which is great. I want you to carry on doing that. Don't worry. But that is the best way to grab my attention. So please do that. Okay, Six Squirrel says we have to remain resilient. Yes, we do. Absolutely. Okay, John says, please explain the role or duties of a composer and an orchestrator. Yes, they are actually a team, especially when it comes to the world of film composing. Now, quite often you'll see, like for example, if you watch an Indiana Jones film, you will see music by John Williams. Now, he's the one that gets the credit in the movie. But if you keep watching the credits, you'll also see things like orchestrations by, and you'll have a different person's name there. And you'll see music supervision and things like that, and you know, other kind of music-orientated roles that are in the credits. So the composer and the orchestrator work as a team. They work together. Sometimes the composer does all the orchestrations as well. John Williams does a lot of his orchestrations, but he does not do all of them. What does an orchestrator do? An orchestrator basically takes the compositional ideas, the completed compositional work of the film composer and will basically orchestrate it for the orchestra. So basically ascribing parts to particular parts of the orchestra. And quite oftentimes what that means is the composer will have done like a reduced score. So maybe like scoring it for 2 pianos, for example, which we call a reduced score. And then there'll be annotations all over the score saying which parts are for which sections of the orchestra. And then the orchestrator will go and expand that and transcribe that out into the full orchestral score. John Williams conducts most of his own scores. So that's the score he uses when he conducts the score when they go and record the score. And so that's what the composer does. The composer's job is to create the music and work in partnership with the director and the producer of the film to create the ideal score for the film. And that is a partnership. So it's not like the filmmakers and the director, they shoot the film and then they say, right, here you go, John, you go and compose the music for it. And that's it. They don't touch it until John's like, here, I've finished it. And then they play the orchestral mock-up for the film for the director. Some films are like that. Most of them aren't. Small budget films, that's how they tend to work. Those are the kind of films I have worked on, like student films. I work on student short films, so films that are like 5 minutes, 6 minutes long. Those are the kind of films that I work on. And quite often they will give me their final rough cut of the film, and I will compose to that film, to what I get in their rough cut, and then I will send them my first draft. And doing this in Studio One now is even easier than it was before, and I actually got it down to a pretty good art before with just using the video player. And finding hit points was a little bit tricky, but I could use a combination of Studio One and Notion, and the interoperability between Notion and Studio One. So I could do a lot of the hit points and things like that in Notion, and then I could print the audio and send the audio to Studio One, and then mix and master in Studio One. So I did quite a lot of it that kind of way, using that interoperability between the two. So I work on real short films. I don't work on feature films like John Williams does. But one of my friends, a guy called Stu Kennedy, has worked as an orchestrator and a composer's assistant on several major blockbuster films, big feature films. Like he has worked on the Lord of the Rings films, so some of his compositions, some of his works are actually in the score for some of the Lord of the Rings films, for example. So he does work, and he works with composers like David Arnold. So, often you'll see composer, music by David Arnold, orchestrations by Stu Kennedy, and things like that. So that's kind of the difference between composer and orchestrator. Composer does all the compositional work, and then the orchestrator basically puts it across the orchestra. And he or she will work hand in hand with the composer to make sure that everything sounds as the composer intends. So particularly in the case of John Williams, John works exceptionally closely with his orchestrators to make sure that his signature sound is perfected in the orchestrations, so that unmistakably it is a John Williams score. And so that's kind of how that works. But that is a great question. And quite often, somebody who is an orchestrator will eventually, become a film composer in their own right, so they may get their own films eventually. And sometimes, you develop a really good relationship with a really good orchestrator, and you end up just working as a team. And you can work that way for, 20, 30 years. Apologies, folks. I do have a raging cold that is just it's been kind of building for a day or two. And now it's just just this evening, it's just really decided, right, now we go up into fifth gear. And it's not COVID. I've done COVID tests. I am clear of COVID. This is definitely a cold. So, yeah. It's no fun. Let me just say that. All right, so that is a great question. So, I'm going to see if there's another question. Pepper Up to Music says, now that the effects bus allows sends, how does it differentiate itself from a regular bus? Actually, pretty simply. The effects bus just says effects, and it doesn't have the bus symbol on it. It just says effects. So if I show you real quick here, if I go over to screen over here, and oh, you don't see my camera. There I am. All right, so if you look over here, this is just a regular effects channel which has the sends on it, but as you can see, it just says effects. Now, if I was to add a bus channel, it looks pretty much exactly identical, but this time it has the bus symbol on it. Now, for me personally, I would say I could see no benefit to there being effects on sends. Sends on effects, rather. Let's put it the right way around. I saw no benefit in there being sends on effects, because I had a use for effects channels and I had a use for bus channels. If I did not want to be able to send an effect to a bus, I would just use an effects channel. But if I wanted to use, if I wanted that send for, let's say, sending a delay to a reverb, then I would use a bus channel. And I knew that there was a modifier that meant I could, when I dragged in an effect, I could either get the effects channel or I could get the bus channel. So on a PC, if you hold down the Alt key when you're dragging in the effect, it will drop the effect on a bus channel. Some of you might not know that, but that's the easy way to do it. So you're not having to go, right, okay, I need to add a bus, and then I need to, I need to right click, and add a bus channel and then bring the effect in. No, you never needed to do that. You could always just hold Alt and drag in that effect, and it would create a bus channel instead of an effects channel. And then I could send to an effects channel. So for me, I never saw the reason to put sends on effects channels. But everybody was just like, we must have sends on effects channels because that's how every DAW should work. It should be like that. It should just be like that. There should just be sends on effects channels. So we at Presonus, we listen to our customers all the time, and it's what you all wanted, so we gave it to you. So you now got sends on effects channels, which, by the way, pretty much means that now an effects channel is pretty much exactly like a bus channel. It does exactly the same job. Pretty much. So, but there are different ways in which you can do things. I mean, you can't, for example, I don't think you can right click. If I was to grab all of these and then right click, you only get add bus for selected channels. You don't get add effects send for selected channels. So that's a unique thing about bus channels, and that is still a unique thing. So I'm glad that is there. So I can just go boom, and there, I've got a bus. You can't actually do that with, if you want to set up sends on all of these channels to one effects channel, you can't do that. But what you can do is you can select all of these channels, like this, and then I can go to effects, and let's say I wanted to do a delay send of some kind. So let's say, where's analog delay? Let's go grab this guy. So let's start to drag this in, and then we hold down Alt and C. If I'm holding down Alt C, it goes add bus channel, or if I let go, it says add effects channel, add bus channel, and I just drag this onto one of them. And now we have an analog delay, and all of these channels are sent to this analog delay, just like that. It's an extra step from how you would do it with a bus, but it still produces the same result. And now I could actually send this to I can now send my delay to the reverb. Or I could remove that, and I could go, okay, I want my reverb to go to a delay instead. So I could go plus, and then I can go analog delay. And I could have that as a pre-fader send. And that's as easy as that. So, yeah. So, effects channels and bus channels now are very, very similar. But the way you can set up a bus channel is still unique and separate from setting up effects channels. So I hope that answers that question. That's a beaut, though. Good question. Palette Studio says, I don't want to be the only one, but if you care to show a bit of the lyrics track thing, I would sure watch hard. Okay, cool. We can do that. We can do it. Let me go and get my song open that has the lyrics track built into it. Already set up. So I'm going to go back over to the screen, and now you can see my song, Dig Myself a Hole. Okay, and you can see here that the lyrics are written into this lyrics track here. And if I click on the lyrics letter here, this big letter L, it opens up the lyrics display. And now I can see all of my lyrics. Now, you can, when you first open the lyrics track on a song and you want to put your lyrics into your song, you can just, like you would for the chord track, you can just draw in a block and write in the text, and then just listen to the vocal and line it up where you need it to be for the vocal, which is what I did here to a degree. But if you are if you already have like a Word document or a text file that already has, I think text files are supported at the moment, not necessarily Word documents. If you have a text file or a PDF document that has the lyrics for your song on it, you can copy paste those straight into the lyrics track, and then you can just move them about. You can grab each individual line and you can move it about. And sometimes you can grab each individual word and drag it about until you get them exactly where you want, which is what I did here. I copy pasted them in to the lyrics track, and then I just started moving them about until they fit. So, oops. Now the cool thing is I can set this display to, at the moment it's only set to global, but if I had instrument tracks on this, there is a lyrics automation lane on instrument tracks so that you can have them appear in a score. So if you are writing if you're doing something for, let's say, choral music, and you have instrument parts that you've brought over from Notion, for example, you've brought a score over from Notion that's got the lyrics in it. When you open that score up in Studio One and it's got all the lyrics in it, you'll be able to see those in the individual score, in the score editor, in the individual tracks. You'll see it there. And you can open up the automation lane and you can select each individual track, and they'll display in the automation lane. When you're looking at the note editor, and then when you're looking in the score, they will appear in the score directly, which is really, really cool. So, because lyric writing in Notion is a cinch. It's very, very easy. And it's now pretty easy here in Studio One, but it's extremely easy in Notion, and then you can send from Notion to Studio One, and it brings in all the lyrics and everything. So the cool thing about this, with this massive lyrics display, is let's go back to the beginning. I was trying to expand this and my mouse is a little bit screwed up. I need to get a new mouse. So it's not playing nice with me at all. Let's just zoom that out a little bit further. There we go. All right, so the cool thing here is if I go into this wrench mode here, I can set this so that the lyric goes blue ahead of when the lyric is sung, and I can choose by how many quarter notes it does that. So if I want like 2 beats or 1 beat, I can set this to 2 or 1, or I can set this to 1.5 or 2.5 or half a beat, whatever I want. I can have it centered, or I can have it set to left. So if I go left, everything will go across that way. Or for, you know, more of a poetry style, you can do that. And you can adjust the font size. You can make it massive. And this is a resizable dialog box. So it's very cool. And then if I go into the pencil tool here, you can even show the grid. So you know exactly what bar number and pretty much what beat number every part is coming in on, every line and every word is coming in on. You can also you can check spelling mistakes here, and you can correct spelling mistakes, and you can move a word using the spacebar to wherever you need it to be. And then you can come out of that mode, you can come out of that mode, and then when you play the song, watch what happens to the lyrics. This is very cool.
When everything's against me, my back against the wall, holding all the words, 'cause I feel 2 feet tall. I'll stand and shout, no holding back. Do or die, gonna dig myself a hole.
Now what you'll notice there is that the next line is in blue, and the lines that are done go dark grey, so they're grayed out, and then lines that are to come are in white. And this thing auto scrolls. So if you're recording a vocal and you don't want to have to hold a lyric sheet, or you don't want to have to hold a cell phone or an iPad and have to swipe whilst you're singing, you can use this. Or I should say, you can use this. Pointing right up there. You can use that guy. You can use the lyrics display. And you can size it to whatever size you need it, so that you can read the lyrics wherever you are in relative position to the screen. So it's really handy, and knowing that it will auto scroll, so you don't have to think about that. You can just concentrate on following the lyrics and following where you are in the song, with, you know, the blue line and the white line and so on and so forth. So it works incredibly well, and it for me personally, not only is this a place where I can actually write my song, but it's also a place where I can use this lyrics display for doing vocal takes or backing vocal takes. This is going to be so easy. I don't need to have a Word notepad or a text document or anything like that open and have that open on my second screen. I don't have to do that anymore. You know, because before I would be facing this way with my lyrics on my second screen, and I'd be singing this way and not really paying attention to the Studio One screen. I'd be singing this way. And I could still do that. I could still put the lyrics display over on my second screen, which you're not going to be able to see, but I could do that. I could just, hang on, there we go. See, I can drag it off and I can drag it back. I can put this on my second screen and have it full screen on my second screen if I wanted to. And I could sing facing this way again. But knowing I don't have to have another text document open ever again. I don't have to constantly flip between Studio One and the text document when I'm doing a vocal take. So it's very, very powerful. Indeed. And I'm sure it's only going to get more powerful. Rick Grand says, I was getting frustrated with the vocoder until I learned to turn off the Z. Yes. I think I said this in one of my videos. I forget which one, but one of my videos in my Studio One 6 series. And I think it might have been either the plugins video where I did do a bit more of a demo on the vocoder, or talked about it in the main overview video. One or the other, I can't remember which. But the reason why it does not work with the low latency monitoring is because when you are side chaining the audio input into an instrument track, it won't work. The reason being is because what the low latency monitoring path does is this. It takes the audio engine and splits it in two. And on one buffer, you have your recording path. And then on the other one, you have your playback. So it splits the audio engine into two. so that you can have the lowest latency possible for recording, and then the playback path just goes through normally. And then it joins everything else, it joins everything back together again at the main output, and it makes sure that everything is in sync. It does all the calculations to keep everything in sync. It's amazing that it does that. And not a lot of people understand how it works, but this is how it works. And having the vocoder and having the ability to sidechain audio input into virtual instruments now is going to expose this problem. And it's a problem that will never be resolved, because it can't be. Because the vocal track requires the recording path, and the instrument track requires the playback path, and they need to be active, recording and monitored at the same time. And that's why it won't work, because you can't have these two, or one of these two, on the same on different paths. So that's why it doesn't work, and why it will never work. I don't think it will ever get fixed, because it's actually a design thing. It's a limitation of having essentially two buffers, one for recording and one for playback, which is what you have with the low latency monitoring system. So that, if you've got a slightly less powerful computer, or a slightly slower CPU, or slightly less RAM, then you can still use Studio One, and you can still make a good amount of tracks and a good amount of virtual instruments and plugins and things without getting into trouble. So, which is what the low latency monitoring path was designed to do. It was designed so that you could record at one buffer and mix at a different buffer without having to keep on changing it all the time. Because, users were getting annoyed at the fact that, when you're recording, you have to set the buffer to one setting. And then when you're mixing, you set it to another one. And you're constantly having to go into the options audio setup, and you're having to change that all the time. It's a bit annoying, and it's a bit of a pain in the butt, and it's a bit of a time waster. So that's why we created the low latency monitoring path, to solve that problem, so that you have a monitoring path for playback and a monitoring path for recording. Fixes that problem. So, when you're mixing, you don't need the low latency monitoring path at all. But when you're recording, you will need a separate path for recording and a separate path for playback. So that's why that exists. And unfortunately, with the vocoder, it needs both paths, so it won't work in low latency monitoring mode. So that explains that to you, Rick. But you're absolutely right. Until you know that, it is frustrating. Let's see. Tomato soup with smoky goddess shreds and basil slivers. That sounds nice, actually. Going through, and you guys are saying hello to each other. Andy Arthur is here. Andy Arthur is a dude. He is a great guy. He's one of my earliest supporters. Andy, I really appreciate you being here. Thank you for coming. Let's see. This makes me want to transcribe a whole lot of tabs into Studio One. Yeah, it probably does. Can you move that window to another monitor? Which window? Are you talking about the lyrics display? Yes, you can. Billy Morgan says, is this available in the Studio One remote? Studio One remote is not updated for Studio One 6 yet. That will come in time. Deer Creek Audio is here. He says, to use the loops I never purchased but would get through Sphere, do you need to be online when you use them? Can you download them as a group versus individually? With Studio One 6, you can download the whole lot via the new integrated installation window. We have done a lot of work to improve that dialog so that when you are installing stuff, it installs very efficiently and very easily. So yes, you can download all that stuff in PreSonus in a one move thing. You just select it all and then you hit install. Job done. But as to whether do you need to be online when you are using them, no, you don't, because they are downloaded and stored locally on your computer. They don't stay in Pressonosphere. Pressonosphere is basically a place where you can get access to... Ow. Smack the mic. I'm not talking about you, Mike Johnson. Pressonosphere is basically a place where you can get access to almost all, not quite all, the software stuff that we make at Presonus. And you can just download it all for the 1 monthly fee or the 1 annual fee. You can download it all and you can use it however you want in Studio One or Notion, depending upon whether you're using the sound sets for Studio One or the expansion sounds for Notion. And you also get Notion for free, as well as you get Studio One as well. But they will be downloaded and installed on your computer. They don't stay in Sphereland. So that answers that question. It's a good one, though. And I did see... Oh, Lollipop Guild. You retracted your question about what my favorite chord changes are. Because I was going to answer that question. So I'm disappointed that you took that question off. It's a good one. That, by the way, was my fresh air spray doing its thing. It freshens up my room every 35 minutes. So yeah, my favorite set of chord changes. I have a couple. I really like the chord changes to Cherokee. If you don't know what that is, you can Google Cherokee, and if you do that, you might get a car ad, because I think there was a Jeep called the Jeep Cherokee. But if you type in Charlie Parker Cherokee, you'll get the song Cherokee, and you'll get his recordings, and you might even get some of his solos on the changes to Cherokee. And of course, the changes to I Got Rhythm. Those are my two favorite sets of chord changes. Because you can play anything on those chord changes. You can play anything on those chord changes. You can write an entire new set of songs just using those chord changes, and just put a new melody on there, give it some new lyrics, maybe a different style of music, a different genre, a different tempo, maybe. I mean, I've heard Cherokee played at close to 400 beats a minute. I have never played it personally, never played it that fast. I think the fastest I've ever played Cherokee was 360 beats a minute. Playing that on drums. I would never dare play at that tempo on bass, because playing a walking bass line at that tempo for 6 hours is exhausting. But playing it on drums is nice and relaxing. You know, yes, my arms and my hands and my wrists are doing quite a lot of work, but it's nice and relaxed. I'm not really thinking too much about it, and I keep things nice and relaxed. I keep my posture relaxed, and I can play about 360, 370 beats a minute for hours and never break a sweat, because all I'm doing is just letting the sticks do the work. On the bass, it's a little bit harder, because you're having to pull the strings with your fingers and hold the strings down with your other fingers and move your hands into the right places and everything. It gets a little bit more tiring, but I suppose, you know, you attain more stamina the more you do it. I Got Rhythm was the second song. I Got Rhythm by George and Ira Gershwin. And I forget who wrote Cherokee. I can't remember who wrote Cherokee. But Cherokee was first made famous, actually, maybe about 10 or 15 years before Charlie Parker's time. And I think it originally had a clarinet solo feature on it. And then it got picked up by the young beboppers in 1942, 1943, and they thought, hey, these are great chord changes, and we can just extend these chords, harmonically extend them, not just in time, but harmonically extend them, and they found that they could they could create an awful lot of elaborate improvisations on these chord changes. And then the challenge was being able to negotiate these chord changes and then substitute chords that were put in place of the original chords, and improvising on those at breakneck speed. That was the challenge of bebop, really. And also being able to find where beat 1 is, because, beats 2 and 4 were so strongly emphasized in what we'd call modern jazz, bebop, and onwards, that finding the one might be a little tricky, because not everybody is actually directly playing beat 1 of every bar. It's implied. It's there. You feel it. You have the more you play that kind of music, the more you have a sense of awareness of where beat 1 is, but it's not necessarily directly played. Sometimes it is, but most of the time it isn't. Written by there you go, Ray Noble. Cherokee, written by Ray Noble and published in 1938. Thank you, Kyle. That's the information I was looking for, and I think it originally had a clarinet solo in that original recording, and that really appealed to a lot of the beboppers, and they really grabbed hold of it. Billy Morgan says, Studio One meetup later tonight. I believe that is 2 a.m. my time. That's probably going to be more late than I'm prepared to stay up for, because I'm already exhausted, to be honest. Lollipop Girl says it was off. No, it wasn't off topic at all. This is Songwriting Simplified. We talk about chord changes and that kind of stuff here. It's cool. Dick Ricordio says Notion sounds worth it versus PSO, and the Rewire work okay. Okay, Rewire is no more. It was discontinued by Reason Studios, formerly known as Propellerheads, in 2020. So they are no longer developing it. They discontinued it. They retired it. Rewire is no longer in Studio One 6. It was pulled from Studio One 6, just as it has been from a whole host of other DAWs. So Rewire is not a thing I would recommend anybody use anymore. Although it is currently still available in Notion 6, because it always was available in Notion 6, but it won't really work very well because other DAWs don't use it, including Studio One. The Notion sounds were created in 2012 or 2013, one or the other, I can't quite remember which, by the London Symphony Orchestra, plus a stellar cast of session musicians from the rock and pop and jazz worlds. And they were all recorded at the world-famous Abbey Road Studios in Studio A, I think it was Studio A that they recorded them all in, which was the studio that the Beatles used and the Rolling Stones used, and Star Wars, I believe, was recorded there too. The Star Wars film score was recorded, I believe, in Studio A. And that's where all the Notion sounds were recorded there. So world-class orchestral sounds played by world-class orchestral musicians and some of the best rock and pop and jazz musicians to provide the rhythm section sounds for drum set, for bass guitar and acoustic guitars and electric guitars. And they also had one of the best piano players in the UK and Europe play the piano samples as well. The PSO is a completely different set of orchestral sounds, but both were managed from a product management point of view by the same person. The guy that looked after overseeing the creation of the Notion sounds was the same guy who curated the sounds for the Presonus Symphonic Orchestra, a guy called Eric Welch, who worked for Notion, and then when Notion was bought by Presonus, he worked for Presonus for many, many years. But yeah, they are fantastic. Thanks for Loop Answer 2. You're welcome. Does Studio One 6 have a lock pan to channel feature? Yes, it does. Yeah, in new songs, it is set to on by default, but it can be toggled. Let's open up the mixer and see if I can remember how to show this. But I think it's pretty much on by default. I think there you go. So you click this little down arrow and there you have lock pan to channel. So with new songs, it's on by default, but if you want to lock the pan to channel, you can do. You just check that box. You just check that option there. That was a major feature request, and we delivered, which is awesome, because that's what we are. We are awesome. Good questions, though. One after 909. I think you're new to my channel. I don't think I've seen your name before, but welcome. And you say, what can I do to reach out to help Jonny Guy? That is a great question. We are thinking about what we can do and trying to come up with a cohesive plan whereby we can get him the support he needs. So stay tuned. I'm sure either myself or one of my moderators will be posting something on their respective channels about this soon. And if you're a member of the Home Studio Trainer Facebook group, something about that will go up soon as well. We just need to decide what the best way to actually do that is. But yes, if you can PayPal him, as Billy Morgan points out, you can hit him on PayPal. I'm sure he'd appreciate that. Bell Studio says, what does lock pan to channel do? Well, what it does is, let's say your guitar is panned hard left, and then you do a reverb send to a reverb, then if the panning follows the send, which is what a lot of people have been asking for a long time. As Kyle answers right there, the channel pan also sets the pan for each send. Yes. Yes, it does. Good question, though. Good one. And I think I kind of went over that on my overview as well. And I think I also make mention of it in the recording and mixing video that I did as well. So there's plenty of content on my channel, folks, for Studio One 6. And there's going to be more as well. I'm going to do another Sunday Night Live on my birthday. So we're going to combine celebrating Studio One 6 and my birthday at the same time on Sunday. So that's going to be cool. I'm very excited to be doing that. It's not often that a product release coincides with my birthday. So that's what we're going to do next Sunday. And so if you've got Studio One 6 related questions, or there's something you want me to review that you maybe haven't had the chance to check out yet, then we can do that. All you got to do is just ask the question on the day, and we'll try and get through as many as we can. I may, depending upon how I'm feeling by the time I get to Sunday, if I'm feeling good enough and healthy enough, then on Sunday I will extend the show, so it's more than just the usual hour. We'll maybe extend beyond that to, an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. Just depending upon how many questions you guys have. If you've got some questions and there's things you want to see in Studio One 6 that you've not seen before, then we can go through those. And I will aim to just give you as many answers and give you as many demonstrations of Studio One 6 as I can. Now, do I know everything about Studio One 6? No. I know most things because I have been using Studio One 6 for a very long time. Much longer than you guys have. Much, much longer. I will not be wearing my birthday suit. Don't worry. My birthday suit is reserved for very, very special occasions, but that's another subject. Open Bar Sunday. I like the name of that. That's pretty cool. Music in Motion says, hope you have a wonderful birthday. I'll do my best to be there. Thank you very, very much. I appreciate everybody. You guys are all awesome. All of you. You are all awesome. Every single one of you. whether you're in the chat or whether you are just watching, whether you are a subscriber or whether you're just a regular visitor to my channel and you watch my videos but you aren't subscribed. You are still freaking awesome. And I value you very much. Every person that watches this show and every person that watches one of my videos, you are gold. And I appreciate you very, very much. But if you're watching and you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead, do it. It'll be fun. And it will mean that you and I can interact a little bit more than we ordinarily would. And also, you'll get, if you hit the notification bell as well, you'll know when there's new videos and there's new live streams, and occasionally I put up posts and things like that. So, for example, if I have to cancel a show, I'll put a post up on my channel. But if you're not subscribed, you probably won't see it. You probably won't get a notification. So make sure you are subscribed and make sure you have all notifications ticked and selected. And will I wear will I wear a kilt? No, I won't be wearing my kilt. Wearing my kilt is almost as reserved as birthday suit, but not quite. I wear my kilt outfit to things like weddings and major national celebrations, that kind of stuff. Pepper Raptor Music says, it's always an education and a pleasure seeing your streams. That is a very kind thing to say, and I appreciate it very much. Thank you. Thank you very much, everybody, for your kindness. You guys are great. Let's see, what else do we have? So I take it in lieu of a after show Zoom, you guys are all going to go off to the Studio One meetup, which is kind of a little bit late for me. I would be happy to stick around for a little while for an after show Zoom, if there is one. But if not, that's cool. I'll just head off to bed. Rich Wrestler's here. He says, thank you, Rich. You are awesome. And you and I have had some very nice conversations on Facebook recently. So I appreciate you. Thank you. Thank you very much. United Effect is here, and you are new, so thank you for subscribing. Thank you for coming. And you say best regards from Montreal. Montreal, Canada. I love Montreal, and I love Canada. And the reason why I love Canada is I have lots of relatives in Canada. I have relatives in the United States, covering about maybe 4 or 5 states. But I have maybe a lot more relatives in Canada. Because a lot of Scots emigrated to Canada in the 40s and 50s, and some even earlier, actually. But yeah, so I have lots of relatives in various different parts of Canada, which is awesome. So I love Canada, and I love Montreal. Montreal's a lovely, lovely city. Music Motion says, I can do a short Zoom hangout prior to the meeting if you'd like. That would be great, but, I don't want to kind of put you out, you know what I mean? But if you're up for it, then that's great. But if you're not, that's also fine too. Ziggy's doing the Steel meetup. Ziggy is awesome. For those of you that don't know Ziggy, you should. You should definitely get to know that guy because he is great. Lollipop Girl says, thank you for hanging with us tonight, even though you felt like crap. Get some rest. Yes, I will. And, one thing I do know is I have a very old recipe passed down from my mother and from her mother for a variation on chicken soup. And it has to be made with real, actual chicken. Can he just buy a tin of this stuff? It's real, actual, proper chicken. And it has some herbs and some spices in it as well. And it's perfect, and it sorts a cold out in under 48 hours. So I know how to make that because my mother taught me. And so I will probably be going and grabbing some of that. Any meetup in San Fran or the North Bay of California? That is a good question. I don't know. But the good thing is that these are virtual Studio One meetups. So you don't have to be from any of the locations that the Studio One meetups are held. I mean, I host one here on the last Friday of every month. But I've also been to a I've also been to the one of the Australian ones. I've been to the Illinois one for Jonny Guy because he hosts that one, and I've been to the Louisiana one, which is hosted or has been hosted until recently by folks from the Personas head office. And I've been to a few others. Which is cool. So you don't have to be from that locale to be able to join. So if you want to get along to the meetup that Ziggy is hosting, then doesn't matter where you are, get yourself along to it. And there's no plane fare. Okay, Music to Motion has his after show Zoom link, which is cool. So that's where I will be heading right now if you want to continue the chat, and we will just chill and have fun, and it's just a gathering of friends, really. So if you are up for that and you just want to be involved, then yeah, come on along. Otherwise, there is the Zoom link somewhere for the studio meetup. All right, so there we have it, folks. I'm going to go back over to this screen because I should have gone over to this screen ages ago. I'm not really doing that great at running this show tonight. Apologies. I will see you guys all on Sunday, on my birthday, for a very special Sunday Night Live celebrating Studio 16 and me being another year older and having even less hair than I had this year. All right, folks. Good night, everybody.
Against me, my back against the wall, holding all the words, cards I feel 2 feet tall. I'll stand and shout